Well, I'm glad you got exam two in the rearview mirror. Now we're on to the third block of instruction, which is where we come out of the real close strategy or detailed strategy elements, and we start to look at how do firms really make this work. One of the first ways that firms really make this work is they recognize that the CEOs have bosses. Right now in Globus, you feel like you are the kings or queens of the world because you're making all the decisions. But at the same time, you feel pressure. Why? Because you know me, the big bad instructor, are going to assign a grade to your performance in the Globus simulation. And so, in essence, I become your owner from that perspective because I'm going to hold you accountable for how well you perform. And so, we sometimes feel like CEOs have nobody to answer to, and that is absolutely false. CEOs have a lot of people to answer to, and that's where this idea of corporate governance comes from. So we're going to look at why it's an issue and then how they handle it. Many of you work in small and medium-sized businesses, and so you see this in practice on a daily basis. Many of you see the owner in the business every day. It may be that you actually work directly for the owner, and the owner makes every decision or something like that. And so in these sorts of situations, there is no difference between who owns the company and who's controlling the company because the owner is the senior manager and is very hands-on. For any number of reasons, though, perhaps the business grows, perhaps the owner just loses a little bit of interest because they're getting older and their business has been very successful. Sometimes owners will step away from the business and hire professional managers to run the business. And even though we're going to talk about this at a management level, actually, this is the same thing that happens anytime you hire an employee to work for you, but you cannot closely track minute by minute what they're doing. You have to trust them to do what you've asked them to do, and then you have some sort of a way that you back that up probably. But for this discussion, we're going to talk about the owner of the business and the person that's actually making the detailed day-to-day decisions. This is called an agency relationship. One party's delegated decision-making responsibility to another party, and they get paid. So the question becomes, if I'm the principal, how do I make sure that the agent does what I want them to do, that they pursue my best interest? What are some of the challenges, if you will, or the thought processes they go through? The first fear of the principal is that the agent is honestly doing their very best, but they're just not very good and they're making bad business decisions as a part of that. Because of this, you'll find that often ownership puts in some monitoring perspectives to the manager. They stay plugged into the business, even if it's only a phone call once a week, even if it's only sharing certain information, but they put certain control measures in so that they can keep track of what's going on and they can always trump what they think is going to be a bad decision. Then it may be that the agent is making decisions that aren't bad, but they're just different perhaps than the owner wants. Many of you during your time at Midwestern State have gone out to local businesses and you've gotten or you've attempted to get them to support your fraternity, your sorority, your organization in some way. And the agent says, sure, I'll be happy to sponsor your event for $500 and I get my name on the back of your t-shirt in return. Well, then the agent finds out that the owner is a huge and very loyal Texas A&M alumni, and she is livid that you ever gave one penny to a school beyond Texas A&M. So that would be a case where you're not really making a mistake. You could argue it's a great marketing decision, but it's different than what the owner would want. And then sometimes you're making perhaps very good business decisions, but it's different than what the owner would choose to do. For example, the owner may be looking to sell the business in a few years, therefore they want to try to maximize short-term profitability, where they personally just need to generate some cash. Where the agent is thinking long-term and doing a wonderful job of seeing the future, but is going to have to spend some money and lower the profitability over the next few years to better position the company for a long-term future. So you see, neither one of those are wrong decisions. They're just different decisions. But the real thing that people usually talk about is that they want to make sure that the agent isn't taking advantage of the principal. And obviously, it's that word opportunism that we talk about. How does that manifest itself in these sorts of businesses? It could be in the form of travel perks. It could be that the agent, or I'm sorry, the principal, or I'm sorry, the agent, the manager, buys a company airplane so that they can fly around personally. Of course, I have nothing wrong with that, but other people might. Or it could be that they always travel first class, or that they buy really nice cars as company cars because they say they need to use them to travel. It could be a pay perk. It could be that they have ways of increasing their compensation. It could be that they decide that, hey, to really network in this town, I need to have a country club membership that the company picks up. It could be in the form of office perks. It could be simply that the person has a very nice office. It could be that they make sure that there's catered food every Friday. And they do that not so much for the benefit of the employees, but because they personally like that. Very common is that you see side deals. For example, the manager, the agent, accepts a loan offer from a particular bank. Come to find out that wasn't necessarily the best offer, or they didn't really try to get a better offer, but their friend is the president of that other bank, or perhaps they even sit on the board of that other bank and they want to steer the company's business that direction. And then sometimes it's just outright nepotism where you're hiring family members or you're making sure you're taking care of friends instead of hiring the best qualified. So, what do people do? I've already talked about the fact that often the solution is that they monitor. You just pay attention. You may require budget expenditures above a certain amount to be approved by you as the owner. You may approve the company budget and allow no deviations. You may have strategy meetings weekly, monthly, semi-annually with the manager, all sorts of things. But the most common way that people do it is through compensation. The idea is you make more money when I make more money. And so they think that aligns the interest so that they'll do things the same. Let me give you an example of a great agency relationship that I'm aware of. I know that some of you work at Chick-fil-A. Probably everybody else goes to Chick-fil-A. The operator in town, Mary Beth Leach, is an incredible person and a huge fan of MSU. But the way the Chick-fil-A arrangement works out is, in general, is the operator doesn't own the store. The operator doesn't own the land underneath the store. They have a contractual relationship with Chick-fil-A. And of the monthly revenue, a certain amount of it goes to Chick-fil-A before the operator gets a penny. Once it meets that contractual relationship to Chick-fil-A, then they split the profit 50-50 going forward. So the idea is the operator only makes money when the company's making money. And so that's an idea of aligning interests. So there I kind of make a subtle transition because Chick-fil-A is a public company and it's a huge company. And in the next video, we're going to talk about that because the situation gets even more complicated in the large companies.